be good.
Okay. We will begin our meeting, and we will start our meeting tonight with our official oath for our new board members. So Lori, Steve, and Danny, if you would like to stand and go to the center of the room, and our clerk Ian will go forward with the swearing in of our new board members.
Of course.
So you can see on here, Ian.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Lori Belargin,
Having been elected or appointed to the office of Somerset School Board, but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
having been elected or appointed to the office of, we can say this at the same time.
Okay, sure.
Having been elected or appointed to the office of Somerset School Board, but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God. Thank you.
Congratulations. So as we call the meeting to order, can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alicia, will you please do a roll call?
Yes. Steve Dagala,
Here.
Ian McDonald,
Here.
Lori Belargin,
Here.
Lacey Oster,
Here.
Bruce Belargin,
Here.
Danny Erickson,
Here.
Matt Kukal.
Here.
Our district mission: together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. I have not received any public comment. Shannon, have you received anything?
No, I have not.
Okay. Oh, sorry, and I went forward that a little. Is there a motion to approve our agenda this evening?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So not having any public comment, we'll go forward with our student school board representatives. It looks like we have a video this evening.
Well, they were going to do a video.
Okay.
The video didn't quite happen, so attached to the agenda now is the presentation they put together.
Perfect.
So it'll kind of be one of those things for this month because both girls are currently on the softball field right now. So they weren't able to be here tonight, but you can click on that presentation and go through the few slides they put together for the month of April at your leisure.
Great. Well, good luck to them in softball, and I appreciate them putting the celebrations in here to show. So we will keep moving forward then with our Spartan Spotlight. Welcome to Don Pierre and Devin McDermott. Welcome, and you guys are going to be talking about some building thinking classrooms.
I was waiting for you.
All right.
Before they get started,
Welcome to the circus.
yes, this has been a really awesome joint effort that we've been working with Jan Wickbold, who used to work at CISA, retired, and now she does contract work with us. And so last year Jan worked with just a high school math class, and this year we expanded the work that they were doing to 5th grade through 12th grade. So all of our math teachers, 5th grade through 12th grade, have been working together and reading through the book Building Thinking Classrooms, which really asks us to think about how we teach math differently to kids, to get them thinking while they're in the math room, not just taking notes and regurgitating a process. So I'm not going to say much more than that because I don't want to steal their thunder, but Devin and Dawn have really embraced the work of this book and really done a lot of risk-taking this year with our students, and really are seeing some awesome things happen in their classrooms because of it. So I'm going to let you two take over.
All right, so if you don't know our faces, I'm Devin McDermott. I teach 5th grade math and science at the middle school.
I'm Dawn Pierre. I teach 8th grade math and Algebra 1 at 8th grade level.
So as Mrs. Egton said, we have
Is it on?
turn it on.
I got it.
Okay, good. All right, cool. So we have adopted this book this year. There have been 14 teaching practices that we have gone through as a middle school and high school math PLC. Listed there are the teachers that have participated in this PLC throughout the year. Anything we add, Coach?
No, it's all of us.
All right, great, cool. All right, so throughout this year, members of our PLC were challenged to kind of implement each of these strategies in steps at a time. So we didn't full force do all 14 at once. It was kind of in gradual steps. So a lot of these strategies were outside the norm for a lot of us. I know one thing that was outside of my norm was putting my desk in the middle of my classroom.
And when she talks about norm, like when you think of a classroom, you have the teacher's desk up front, you have rows of children's desks, and this book really stretches it so that you do not have that. And we're not just talking about students working at a table. It started us out. Are you going to do the start out?
Sure. So the very first step that this book proposes is to begin with a problem. So whether that is something directly connected to what you're learning about right now, maybe it's a different kind of problem. This is one that I did with my 5th grade students where they had all of these Avengers, Marvel Avengers, on a puzzle, and they had to figure out which number each Avenger represented. And these are called rich math tests. So these can be things that are engaging, non-curricular, they should be collaborative, and the whole goal of it is to promote the kids talking together. It's not just, okay, here's the step-by-step of what we're going to do. The students have to talk together to figure out what they are supposed to be doing. Eventually, you want to have these rich math tests become part of your in-class learning. It's what we do every day. Right now, I know in my room we do these about once a week. I know Superior does them a lot more often than I do, but little kids.
Yep, and when we introduce math tasks that engage the thinking, the kids are, like, the book lays out exactly how you present it when you present it. So like my students every day when they show up, they line up outside of my classroom. As they enter the classroom, I give them a card. I have cards hanging from the ceiling above standing desks. I've adjusted all my desks so they're standing. And I've also taken out all the chairs from my desk so the kids actually stand the entire time. They get their card for the day, go find out who is in their group. The book tells you you have 5 minutes to introduce the rich task, because when students walk into a room, their blood is flowing, they're thinking. If you let them sit down, the moment they sit down, they start disengaging. And so in my classroom, we just don't even allow them to sit. The tasks have to be verbally given. They're not on a sheet of paper, it's not a worksheet, it's not presented on the board. They say that they want you to present with the kids standing around you in a circle. So when we come into the room, we meet in a circle. If I do have to present them something on the board, it'll be on the whiteboard. And so it's a big difference in my classroom, because when my students show up in the morning, are you gonna let us sit today? No. So, but that's how it's incredibly different.
So all those things that Mrs. Peer just laid out for you will go through in these slides. And like she said, it's very different in an 8th grade classroom where her students are 13 and 14 years old than in my classroom where my students are 10, 11, I even have a few 9-year-olds. It looks pretty different depending on the grade level. So one thing that Ms. Peer mentioned was having those random groups. She said that as her students come in, they line up outside the door, she directs them to a card. The way that I do it in my classroom, because again, I have 9, 10, 11-year-old children, is I made these little character cards for them. Some of them are Disney princesses, some of them are Pixar characters, some of them depend on the season. A lot of kids want me to make baseball cards right now, working on those. But what I'll do is I will walk around and say, pick a card, cards are face down so they can't see what they have. Once every student has a card, I'll say, okay, flip over your card. Then I'll say, okay, everyone who is Tiana, you are a group, you go meet over here. Everyone who is Lightning McQueen, you are a group, you go over here. Everyone who is Woody, you are a group, you go over here. The reason why we do that is so that the students don't automatically assume those roles. Oh, my teacher put me with this person because I'm not very good at math and this person is and they can help me. Or vice versa. My teacher put me here because I'm really good at math and I can help these two. It allows the students to kind of adopt those natural roles without being kind of told, hey, you're the smart one, you do this, you struggle, you need help with this. It allows everyone to be able to step up to that leadership position, depending on what role they get.
Yep, and the book really highlighted that the children have to see that it's random, so you can't have them randomized before they enter the room. You have to present it in a way where they know that you did not fix it in any way, shape, or form. So,
Next thing is vertical non-permanent surfaces, or whiteboards. These things need to be vertical, so on the wall, also erasable. I know the cabinets in my classroom are erasable, so we happen to use the cabinets as well. And the whole trick with this is that you give each group one marker. So for example, I'm in a group with Mrs. Peer and Mrs. Eichton and myself. We have one marker, only one of us can write at a time. This allows the kids to discuss what they're thinking about instead of just one person take the marker and you write down and you solve the problem. The whole goal is for everyone to be talking about the problem and working through it together.
oh, just kidding.
Then, as Mrs. Pierce said, you give the directions orally. Again, with fifth graders, it's a little bit different because a lot of times you do have to have those directions on the board to tell them what to do. But instead of reading a problem, you tell the kids what they're going to be working on and the kids discuss it together. Okay, how are we going to approach this problem so that we can solve it together? I know you are really good about giving oral directions. How do you do it?
Talk it.
Thank you.
Like, I tell them the problem.
I thought you communicated telepathically.
That too.
Personally.
Yeah, no, I just read the problem off of whatever book I happen to be getting it from, whether it's the textbook itself or a deep thinking. I got a book from a student teacher I had, Canoeing with Dogs or something, that is, yeah, that's
Canoeing with Dogs.
Canoeing with Dogs, yeah. So whatever I happen to get it from that day.
This one was a big one. Defronting the room essentially just means get your desk out of the corner of the room. Make sure that every area of your room is somewhere where you can teach the kids. You'll see in a few slides my classroom. But the whole purpose of this is so that you're not teaching just from the front of the classroom. You're teaching from here and over there and over there. You're on the whiteboard up here. If you have a whiteboard back there, like I do in my classroom, you're back there as well. It's allowing the kids, the chance to look around the room and see you and kind of wake up their brains a little bit. But so that you have those vertical non-permanent surfaces accessible around the entire classroom. So the entire classroom is workable and you can teach around the whole thing. So you'll see what that looks like in my room in a couple of slides.
And the book really highlighted when you go into a presentation, if you walk into a room where there's desks all facing forward or tables all sitting facing forward and you're at a meeting, you know you're going to be talked to. If you have round tables with chairs around them, you know that you're going to be doing group work at the presentation. So we do not want students thinking that they're just coming to gather information. They're going to create the information. So rooms are really quite haphazard and overwhelming just because it's not what students are used to, but they got there really quick.
I was gonna say, they adjusted very well.
Right, it's a lot harder for the adults coming into the room than for the students. They were fine.
Yeah, the first day that my desk was in the middle of the room, my kids walked in and said, you have to be the center of attention still. And they got used to it. So. All right, next, answering questions. So as teachers, we a lot of times want to help get the kids there fast. And we tend to answer the questions for them. That's not what you want to do. So the strategy that the book proposed is acknowledging their question, but don't answer it. You know, don't stand by them, kind of give them hints. Don't stop their thinking. Instead, you can say, okay, well, why do you think that is? You think you're right? Okay. Would you bet $100 on it? And that makes them kind of think through their answer, like, okay, am I right and why am I right? I know just today, I forget what the problem was, but I asked a student, okay, do you think you're right? Yeah. Okay, then prove it to me. Talk me through it. And that kind of made them stop for a second, and they were able to walk me through exactly how they solved that problem and how they got that answer.
Yes.
All right, next, in a classroom, naturally, you'll have some students who need more time to work on things, and you'll also have others who get done with the task in about 2 seconds flat. So another strategy the book proposed is building autonomy. So we really worked hard on if your group is finished early, okay, you prove the answer to me, Now go teach it to your classmates. So a lot of times what I'll do, and again, actually same lesson that I taught today, a group got done really, really quickly. I said, okay, explain your answer to me, prove to me that you're right, they did. And I said, okay, now I want you to go help out these other groups. Don't tell them the answer, but guide them towards it, and that's exactly what they did. The hints and extensions should come from the classmates, not just from the teacher themselves. I found that it's very powerful for my students to hear those hints and those teaching words from their classmates than to just hear it from me all the time.
In my class, a lot of times I'll tell my students to go on a walk around the room once they start getting stuck, see where other groups are growing, see where other groups have progressed to. I don't do as many hints because I'm just not as nice. So I just think through it, go see what other people are doing. They talk a lot about transfer of knowledge. So I'll tell my kids, ooh, it looks like there's some knowledge on some of these whiteboards if you just take a moment to look around. And it's funny because when a kid gets stuck and he asks his friend next door, what did you guys do? Transfer of knowledge, just look. So they answer it.
Yeah, that's another thing too, is that with those vertical non-permanent surfaces and the building autonomy, I mean, kids have been taught up until this point, don't look at each other's answers, don't look at each other's answers. So when I first introduced this, I said to the class, okay, is it okay to look at other people's boards? No, actually, yeah, it is, because if you get stuck, take a peek at their board and, okay, their board looks like mine, or theirs looks different, and it helps them really think through exactly what they're doing. On top of those hints and extensions, the book talks a lot about keeping the students in a certain flow. There's a balance between the challenge being too difficult and the student getting too frustrated too quickly, they shut down, or the challenge being not as difficult for certain students and they get bored very quickly. So you provide those hints and extensions in order to keep those students who are solving the problems very quickly engaged, on task, maybe extending their learning a little bit, and the students who may be getting frustrated easily, how can we pull them back in and get them working in a suitable manner so that they're not frustrated, but they are challenged. All right, level to the bottom. So, after you're all done with that rich math test, the whole stuff that you do next is you bring the class back together, you debrief it. Okay, what did your group do? How did you approach this? Is there any direct teaching that I have to do? For example, with that Avengers problem that you saw earlier, I had given a hint about halfway through and said, okay, Iron Man represents a single-digit number, or Groot represents a double-digit number. Sometimes you'll have to go back and teach the skill in case it's a really hard problem. You do this once all groups pass that minimum threshold. So with that Avengers problem, I gave that hint, gave a couple more minutes to work. Okay, now let's come back together and let's talk about what each group did. Now let's solve it together. Now let's do another problem.
So in my classroom, I have older kids. My desks are more middle, and because I don't have any chairs to work around, I make my kids, we walk around to one another's boards. And we look at the boards and we decide, okay, is this work right? If the presentation is not right, can anyone figure out where the error was? What did you like about this presentation? What did you not like about this presentation? And the one rule that they talk about is whoever work is up there, that group is not allowed to talk about it. So I will ask somebody else in the room, can you tell me about their work? What did you see them do? So when you're selecting a whiteboard, whether it's right or wrong work, it doesn't really matter as long as there is enough information up there that the kids who are reading it can explain it to the entire group. And whether you're finding a mistake or you're finding something good, the kids don't really care because it's not necessary, like we're not going to Devin's board, we're going to a board. They really don't know whose it is. And because there's 3 of them, it's not like one kid feels left out or humiliated in any way. And I always, if I'm going to choose a whiteboard space, I go and you look for what is right on that board. So you take a different color marker and you circle what it is that you want them to notice on that particular whiteboard. So looks a little bit different. We don't, we don't sit down, we stand and walk around in circles. Great time.
All right, now this is a little bit different again from 5th grade to 8th grade, because in 5th grade we don't take very many notes. A lot of our learning is just practicing over and over and over again. However, when you do have the time to take notes, it should be student created, right? You're selecting the information that needs to go on there. How can you recap all of that so you're not writing a whole page of notes? And all of this comes after you've had time to go through that problem and discuss. It's a way for the students to kind of reorganize their thoughts and write down what makes sense to them specifically, rather than just sitting and copying a smartboard of notes.
And we do the same thing. We solve a problem, and then I ask the kids, what information do you need for your notes? Depending on what my Algebra 1 kids, it's almost always vocabulary that they're looking for in their notes. My 8th grade math kids, a lot of them will pick one of the whiteboards where they had a lot of work and it's right, and they'll copy down that example. So depending on the student, and other kids that don't take any notes because it's right there. But at least I know they've had enough hands-on experience with the problems where they've actually learned something.
All right, assessment. So the book talks about how for assessment you really want to combine that group work and the individual work. At all times you want to assess, okay, where are the kids right now in terms of their learning, where are they going? It's about the process more than it is the product. So once you have an assessment, it's not, okay, we're done learning this, it's all done, it's where are we going next? Who can take it to another level? Who needs some more reteaching?
It just is, yeah.
So this is my classroom. It actually looks different now as of an hour ago when I redid it. But this kind of shows all the different parts of a thinking classroom. So in the middle there, that like blue circular thing, that's my desk, right in the middle of the classroom. So right there, that's your defronting the room. Around the room, you can see my kids at those vertical whiteboards. I've got whiteboards on the front of my room, the back of my room. As I said, my cupboards are erasable, so I had a couple kids working at the cupboards too. There's that Avengers problem that I showed you at the beginning. Right there, where it says hints and extensions, that's Lisa Johnson, one of our parents. She's fantastic, and she's working with a group who is struggling a little bit, providing them those little hints, guiding them through the problem to avoid that frustration. Building autonomy, you see a student right there, he's kind of leaning over the desk. His group had finished this problem very, very quickly, so I had dismissed them to go help other students. And visibly random groupings. At this time, or for this activity, I had passed out those Pixar cards. It said Faye Lightning McQueen, you're over here, all those good things. Yeah, that kind of shows you what it looks like in action. This is Jake Mitchell's 7th and 8th grade classroom. Again, you see those vertical non-permanent surfaces. You got those random groupings. You can see this kid right here and AJ in the middle there. They're looking around at other boards to see what other groups have done and how their group is in comparison.
The end. The end.
The end.
Questions, comments, concerns?
I'm just curious, so why are you looking at this program versus what you've done in the past?
Okay, so every year you want to improve your teaching styles. You know, you never want to be stagnant. One of the things that we have found with this new generation of learners is they're going into a world with a lot of cooperative working environments. They're not sitting at a workspace by themselves for an entire day. Most people, when they go into a job, they have to work with their coworkers. Ideas are spread that way. A lot of times you find that, especially in mathematics, I feel, because I've worked here for 20 years, so I have a few years of experience. Students, once they get stuck, they're done. They walk into my classroom. I hate math. I have parents that come in, I just want you to know my kid's not going to be good at math because I wasn't good at math. Well, it's not a genetic trait. Like, we can teach everyone. And so we need to adapt to our new learners and the world that they're going into. So when you allow them this movement and not the ability to disengage, the study found that 95% of students were disengaged. They came into a classroom and did something like this for the hour, or their mind was somewhere else. I've had some of the most beautiful art come out of my classroom. It is amazing. And my students often tell me, well, I am processing while you're talking through my doodling. But if they're standing at a whiteboard, there's nothing in their hand. They have no choice but to engage with the work that is in front of them. And so the conversations that I have in my classroom today, I had a kid, we had a y equals mx plus b equation up there, and they were deciding what the rate of change was. And they got into a fight, which is lovely, about whether the 12 acres that were already plowed were the y-intercept or whether it was part of the slope. And so they got in a fight whether it was where it goes in the equation and all this. And they just agreed to come up with different answers until they had the discussion. So that's why.
I know for me at the 5th grade level, I was noticing a lot of my students disengaging. Again, coming in, sitting down, doing what I told them, following the rules, but not actually thinking through what they were doing. So even since the beginning of the year, as I've adopted this more and more and more, I see my students who maybe struggle in math really come out of their shells. Including in other learning areas too. I actually did this in science today with food webs, and the students had to build food webs together. And I had a student who is typically very introverted, doesn't like to share, guiding the rest of her group through how to do this. And I fully believe that her confidence has been in large part due to these activities and having those chances to really become the leader in those groups.
Okay, just have another question for you. So we had an election recently, and I think a lot of our community district is concerned about what's being taught in school. Is this loaded with DEI and word problems and that type of thing?
This is loaded with Khan Academy. It is loaded with Get More Math, which is a math program that practices the Wisconsin state legal standards. As much as I like to think of myself as a free thinker, my days are pretty much filled with the Wisconsin state standards as written. So I teach y equals mx plus b, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I just like to add it with a little pizzazz. Maybe talk about putting a baton in a box diagonally. Really grabs the kids' interest.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was just curious, as far as word problems, if you're boxed in as far as what.
I had a female farmer today. That made me feel good. I always felt like the farmers were males. Now I got a woman out there plowing acreage. Go get them. So, that's right.
John and Devin, just to clarify, this is more so used as like a mentor text to be able to show more style of teaching versus like, this isn't a curriculum. You're still using your regular math.
Oh yeah, this is 100% the math
That's
curriculum.
what I think,
I
like,
appreciate
that's
the
what,
clarification.
that was,
Yes.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not, this isn't something, and I think, as a professional, I think as you kind of started out with, it's nice to know you're keeping our kids as engaging and interest, but knowing that there's that difference compared to what the curriculum and standards are.
Right, and I think just it is so important to get kids to communicate. For a generation that is behind a screen so often, to give them these opportunities to practice conversations and presenting. They're not sitting behind their computers while they're doing this. They're engaged with one another, practicing that communication. And that is the biggest change, is we need them to be able to communicate effectively and efficiently with one another. And adults and everyone else. They explain things to the adults in the classroom, they explain things to one another. They're moving around constantly, not just seated and bored.
Well, I've gotten back, because my daughter is in Mrs. McDermott's, and I've gotten back, well, that's not how we did it in class. And I appreciate it.
Thanks for trying
Yes,
something
thank
new.
you.
Yeah.
I mean, just taking
Just to add to this, one of the really awesome things too is the collaboration between the middle school and the high school. So we have all of our math instructors in the room learning and talking about this together, which has been really wonderful to watch too.
Okay, moving on to our reports, the listening session summary. There was 2 people that attended our listening from the community, and the topic that was brought up kind of circled back to some of the discussion that we had had at a couple of previous meetings about an entire district or community sports boosters, and just kind of some background on their previous district, or they've seen it work, and kind of just a little back, talk about all the different associations and sport groups that are going, and if there's any kind of looking ahead to see if there could be a way to combine and make a full-out boosters, and more discussion on that. Okay. Okay, and then moving on to our superintendent updates.
Pass it right over to Ms. Sheridan.
Oh, I'm up?
You're up.
Oh, well, alrighty then. All right. Let me just pull up my computer. All right, so this year has been a year full of lots of work in my department. The big one that is coming to you today, a little bit late, as I did explain in my memo. Not late in our process, but late because we missed it by a week. That when you got my memo, it was explained. I'm very sorry. We had a few human elements and business elements that got 1 week, us 1 week behind. But we have a K4 math resource that we're bringing before you. There are some bags in front of you if you'd like to dig in and take a look. Right now, we had a policy that was approved December, the second meeting in December, that asks us to bring before the board any core resource. Now, textbook, yes, it was textbook, not resource, that was approved. Thank you, Lori, for catching that. Not sure why that happened. For board approval based on 4 things. The 4 things that the board needs to take a look at is it free of bias? Is it the cost in my approved budget? Is it highly aligned to the board standards that were approved last summer, which we do annually? You'll see that coming for you again this summer. And is it approved for the maturity level of our students? So we went through, typically my process is about 16-month process, which we typically do field testing of any curricular materials over the month of April, which is when we do our forward exam testing to have least interruption with our academics and for student impact. We backed that up. We did have a few interruptions. Those interruptions included that you're familiar with math expressions. They moved from hardcore Mifflin to Heinemann. So that got some of our samples here delayed, unfortunately, so we weren't able to field test them in the same amount of time. We went out all of our high quality resources down to 3 that we really wanted to field test, and you know our elementary folks wanted to do it justice, and they wanted everyone to touch and feel the resources. So in order to get the right materials to teach to our students in the right units that they were currently teaching, to make sure we had continuity with our 3 resources that we really did want to field test, which were Reveal, iReady, and Math Expressions. It took some time to get our samples here. It took some time to get them, everyone touching and feeling, and this is very big work. So the very big work, right, bringing everyone back to the table, we weren't able to have the right amount of time to do the fidelity. Plus, we are still working around the state mandate of top 10 tools, which we're making sure we're getting everybody trained on, hiring processes, etc. So coming back to the table, we came to consensus, which was 100% around the board. On our committee, we had representation from every content area, or from every grade level, as well as administration, as well as our special ed staff. Using these materials with every classroom. So they love math expressions. I understand that Lacey has used it for 15 years in her district. We also have New Richmond, Osceola, St. Croix Falls, who academically, if you look at their scores, they are at the top. Amory uses it. But bigger than around the surrounding area, it is broadly used around the nation. They are moving currently from Hartford Mifflin to Heinemann, which is one of their divisions within their own company. So it's not a big shift. It was just a shift in any new account had a different rep, which really caused some problems getting us the right resources we needed for the right units that we wanted to field test. So it just caused a little bit of a delay, although we did move back everything up. It just caused a wee bit of a challenge to to make the timeline to get it here the first meeting in April, which is why it's here the second meeting in April. So I fully take that on myself. If you look at the 4 things that the board has to take a look at, it is well within my budget, which is approved the spring prior. I did attach their bias statement that comes right from the company. It is highly aligned to the standards. It is highly aligned for focus and rigor. It went through all 3 of the gates as per ed reports. And I also attached the Wisconsin alignment documents. You can see that in my memo. I just did recently though, because we were talking about Lacey's experience with math expression. I did put a link straight to the Heinemann website for math expression. If you want to see a little bit about the resource itself, you can go there. But our teachers will be making a presentation on math expressions later on as they become much more familiar and have some actual examples for you and for our public on the actual resource, much like you saw with UFly, much like you've seen with some of our other components. But all of the pieces are there as far as policy 2510. I would love to have action. If you need more time, that is fine. The problem is fiscal. In order to get this submitted, part of our fiscal responsibility or our fiscal timeline is that physical components that we order have to arrive on site by June 30th in order to count toward this year's fiscal. That is always the tricky part. Anything that arrives after June 30th goes on to next year's fiscal and then impacts budgets down the road. So we do have a little bit of time. If there's any other questions that you need answered, we can do that. We just don't have a lot of time. Or is there anything that you need from me at this time?
Just a little more time. Like you mentioned, so.
Is this Common Core math? Common Core math, does that fulfill all the standards?
Wisconsin state standards are a standalone. They were derived originally back in 2010, but right now Wisconsin has their own state standards that were updated in 2021.
Okay.
And the bags, it's what you're asking for the purchase for, that includes, does that include everything?
Yes.
Because I know like that includes,
The math
in there there's
boards.
the manipulatives,
Yes.
everything, that it's kind of a probably one
One
purchase.
big old package, yeah. So we are ordering everything that is specific to math expression. So we will have the manipulatives, all of the math boards, because that's what makes math expression so special, is that it's a way of explaining math concepts, it's inquiry-based, it's hands-on. It really helps the developmental concept building that math expressions is known for. And you can see that if you click into the math expressions. It's a very short, like 3 little videos that would help explain it to you. But policy 2510 doesn't ask you to approve the resource. It does ask you to approve those 4 bullet points, so just do keep that in mind. But it is very special in that way. It's one of the only resources that have those specialized math boards and ways to help students really develop the math thinking that you heard about with Dawn and Deb.
Well, and I had asked some questions prior too, so I appreciate answering that, because I think my one, and I know Bruce had, and Lori had kind of regarding just that time piece.
Right,
Um,
listed by week.
So, yeah, I think, in the future, and I kind of voiced
Absolutely.
that, like, I think it's really important that we bring it on in one meeting and then approve the next, but you also did answer the question that if those, materials don't arrive by that time, this fund of money for curriculum, this isn't something that then rolls
Carries
over.
over. No.
It's no longer able to be applied to the books a month late.
Right, and we started our process, and this is how this works, future curriculum person. We started this process in January 2023. And so that's how this typically goes, is we don't start with looking at resources. We start with a deep understanding of the why. And that why usually comes from achievement scores, or it comes from new standards being brought on that our resource currently doesn't match. It's a need-based. It's not because there's something bright and shiny and new out there. So it really started with us really looking at our achievement scores. And our math resource that we were using did not have an online component. So we were able to just get by with it while we were looking at other things that were going on. And you knew about My View and UFly and our Journeys component that we really had to take on. And the elementary cannot take on 2 resources at a time. It's a lot. So we had to get our ELA resource really grounded. And so we're in year 2 of that, and that's why we started in 2023, January, with really looking at the math practices. This is all outlined in my memo. Deep dive into our math practices, revisiting the new math standards. We worked with CISA to really do a deep understanding of that at with our teachers at all levels. We did go back in and really look at unpacking those standards to understand the rigor associated with them, to have a really professional understanding of that. Really going back and looking at our priority standards, looking at that vertical discussion. So we don't even touch resources until we have a firm understanding of the what behind, the assessment behind, the kind of the what do we do if they don't get it, what do they do if we do. All of that has to happen first before we ever touch resources. So we didn't even come back to that until this year. So when that policy came into play the end of December, we were just then starting to look at resources. So we tried to back that up, and we were right on track until we didn't get the right samples at the right time. And then had a few other things, and spring break falling in the end of March, we were so close.
So while I understand that Steve and Danny, being new board members, may not have as much background knowledge in this as the rest of us do, although Danny, you were at nearly every school board meeting, so you know that we've had lots of discussion about the process and about the curriculum. So, I'm not opposed to passing this approval, this adoption of this curriculum this evening.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the K-4 math resource, math essentials, math expressions.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Thanks for answering the question ahead of time too, so thank you for answering.
I appreciate it.
I'll do a roll call vote. Matt?
Yes.
Danny?
No.
Bruce?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Lori?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Steve?
No.
Motion carries. Math expressions will be then approved, so you can go forward for the purchase.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Looking at our referendum update.
I have some exciting news today. You are going to be really thrilled with my third part here. So I'm going to show you some playground stuff, which is going to be awesome. Before we get to that, a couple things just kind of on each project. So I'm sure you've noticed the stadium project began last Monday. By the end of day 1, the entire old track was already pulled up and in huge piles. At this point now, the scoreboard is gone. We've got some trees moved out. The press box is gone. Tomorrow, there will be a fairly large Market Johnson trailer delivered on campus where they will kind of house their offices for the next year plus, which is exciting. So in the first week already, lots going on at the stadium, which is great. Performing Arts Center. So I'm going to pass this around if you're interested, but Wool just dropped this off the other day. So this is essentially the color palette of what the inside of the Performing Arts Center will look like. If you're familiar with the high school or the middle school renovations, you'll see some of the similar patterns and design that was intentional to try and kind of mesh all that together. I'm not an interior designer, but there was some intention behind that. This row of material here, this is what all the different chairs will look like in the Performing Arts Center. You may remember we've talked about there'll be a wide variety, which was intentional to kind of help fill up the look a bit if we have some performances where maybe it's not completely sold out, which I don't think will happen, but some different styles and types of rugs to kind of help prevent dirt, salt, sand of getting into the Performing Arts Center. So I will pass this around if interested, but just kind of gives you a nice look of the design element of what the inside of the Performing Arts Center will look like. As mentioned previously, so all of the kind of mini projects within the Performing Arts Center are all out for bid. May 9th, I will go to Market Johnson offices and they will kind of unveil the results of that bidding. So we've had 2 really successful bids so far with the stadium and the elementary project. So we're hoping that the Performing Arts Center comes back favorable as well. So we'll know a little bit more after May 9th. Okay, elementary. Here we go, exciting. So as you've heard us talk about, lots of conversations happening around the playground. We've had some dialogue here, really trying to ensure that we end up, yeah, let's do this one, okay, yep. With a playground, first of all, that's comparable or similar as possible in terms of items available for children that we have now. And as you can already see, and I'll walk you through some of this, but you know, the material now looks very different than 20 years ago. It's much more sleek. It doesn't have those kind of big, huge, massive pieces, which is very intentional. But I'll kind of just walk you through some other things that, again, staff did a great job of giving lots of input. Pam being a really big advocate for specific components that we wanted to make sure was infused into the new playgrounds, which is great. So what you're seeing here is the 4K through first grade playground. So a couple just, lots of things I could point out here, but added more swings, so probably not a shock that swings are one of the most popular items, right? So we had some room because we removed, if you're familiar with the playground, kind of those big, I would say, kind of hefty dinosaur looking things, right? So those are things that took up a lot of space. So instead of replacing it with something like that, we added in some more swings. Hopefully you can get an idea of not only some of the bigger play structures that are zoomed in on a little bit more here, but also seeing some of the freestanding items that we have. I want to point out that this is a draft. This is not officially final yet. We do have a few more freestanding items that will be added both to this rendering and the upper level as well. Our parent group has been very active and vocal about wanting to contribute with some of their fundraising money, some items, additional items to our playground, which was awesome. So I want to thank them very publicly because they've been fantastic. And also as you kind of look at the flow here a little bit, very intentional to ensure that both playgrounds were highly inclusive. A lot of conversation and a lot of drafting and dialogue around how do we ensure that we have items on our playground where all kids feel like they have a space, all kids feel like they belong. So you can see here, this is actually a student in a wheelchair being able to access some big pieces, and it's not a separate structure all by itself that's not infused into the rest of the playground. And also items that all students can use, which is awesome. So we're excited about this. Like I said, I just want to throw out, this is a draft. We have a few things that we might tweak a little bit, but I'm not going to show you the one that's even more zoomed in, but the best thing about this is that, along with the big play structures for those large movements of the slides and the climbing, also infused all over that you can't really see all that well, but maybe a little bit here, are what we call busy items, right? So other things that kids can be interacting with that don't necessarily involve climbing, hiking, swinging, those kinds of things, but interactive boards that are located all throughout these big structures. So we're excited about this. So then we'll move on to the next one. So this is our 2nd through 4th grade playground. Again, you'll see that there are lots and lots of big, hefty structures for kids to do a lot of movement, which was the goal. Oh, Lacey's clapping. Great.
I'm excited that we're.
Yay! Okay, good. Right. Lots of opportunities for kids to, again, move, interact with each other. This one in particular, there will be at least 2 more freestanding items added. Again, our parent group has been very generous, and so they're chipping in some money to add a few more items. You can see here again, as we talk about inclusive playground, ensuring that all students have a place where they belong. You can see some big ramps here, again, that all students can use, but it allows students to play together and not simply just side by side. Lots of balancing. Again, there's lots of options for busy boards that are around here as well. So we also had the company that we're working with give us kind of a side-by-side of options and availability for students now versus what we have proposed here, because we wanted to make sure that if we have 4 slides, we don't want to lose a slide, right? So this ended up being almost an exact 1-for-1 because this rendering and the one we have is not exactly apples to apples. This new rendering now has some more freestanding items than we have out there, which is awesome, but you can see that This should provide a lot of high quality hours of kids playing and running and jumping, which is gonna be great. The one caveat I'll put out with this is currently as it stands, if this was the model that we went with, right now we are over budget, which shouldn't be a surprise and which is not abnormal. The big thing we're kind of waiting for before we officially give the go-ahead to go with these exact renderings as they are right now is waiting to see what happens with our bid day for the Performing Arts Center. So we are, again, hopeful that those bids come back again as favorable as the other two, and then we have a little bit of wiggle room. So, you know, the company we're working with knows that it's going to be tight, but by about May 10th or so, we'll be able to have a really good idea of where we sit. Do we potentially have to remove anything or make something a little bit smaller? We hope not, but right now we have to just kind of wait before we officially say, yes, these are the two drawings that we're going to go with. But we're excited. I know the staff, I'm not even sure they've officially seen some of this. I know a few staff have. I know Pam showed this to the parent group at their last meeting, and they were excited about it, which is awesome. So yeah, we feel good about it. We will have an opportunity as well to maybe cut a few costs by putting out some opportunities for volunteers. Bruce, I think you had talked about getting some volunteers to participate in the wood chip installation, which sounds fun, and even maybe some of the demoing as well.
Yep.
Certainly we can't have volunteers putting all the equipment together for liability reasons, but there may be some opportunity to even save, you know, 30 to 50,000 or so on some of those labor costs. So stay tuned if you're interested in volunteering in our playground. But questions, thoughts?
I had one you kind of answered it, looking at wood chips for the surface.
Yeah, yep, as of right now.
Any reason those instead of the rubber things that we have at the middle school?
Cost.
Yeah, it's significantly more expensive to do the rubber nuggets.
Yep. And we knew this was going to be tight, as you've seen some of the presentations about this. I know, Lacey, you'd expressed a concern of one of the initial numbers you saw of like, how's that going to be enough, right? So, but I know we feel good about where we landed. The company we've been working with has been awesome, very patient, because we've had them do about 15 drafts of this as we keep kind of throwing out what we want to see. So we're excited about it. I think we're almost there. We'll have to, as I said, kind of officially wait and see what happens after our Performing Arts Center bid day. So
the kids, you have this labeled second and fourth.
Yep.
So do those second and fourth graders also have access to what that other drawing, or not drawing, picture that you showed us? Like the swings, there's no swings here.
The swings for this group are not shown because they're off to the side.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
When-
Lacey, did you have a question?
Yeah, when is the performance art bid day? May 9th, okay. So-
Yep.
So then, is it possible, what's the timeline as far as, then if we say, okay, yep, we're going forward with this, as far as installation and, when would this show up?
Yep, so they know that our non-negotiable is this has to be ready by the first day of school. We've even offered, or not offered, expressed that we would love for this to be done even by open house, and be able to do kind of a ribbon cutting type thing on open house. I'm not sure if that'll be done yet.
That's feasible?
Yeah, so we really can't go, I would say, much past about May 20th or 21st, they thought. But they've got kind of everybody on the ready that when we're ready to say go, then we need to go. Yeah, so. All right, awesome. So those were my referendum updates, and the other thing I had was just a reminder of graduation. Ian has volunteered, should I use that word, volunteered? I think so. To be the board representative of welcoming and congratulating our graduates, because Ian has a child that's graduating this year, which is exciting. Yay, and then Lori will be helping with the diplomas as well, and Lacey is a stay tuned. There we go. So, and that's all I had.
Okay, then moving forward, are there any questions for our financial reports or enrollment report? Then looking at consenting the agenda, personnel updates, donations, CISA contract, the ECCP, SCN, minutes, board bills. Any discussion or questions with that, or would we like to make a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve A1, B1, C1, D1, E1 and 2, and F1.
Is there a second?
I can second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then looking forward to our general information, our next board meeting is a work session that will take place on May 6th. Please note that this meeting will begin at 5 o'clock, so it will begin an hour earlier. And then that will be followed within that same meeting with our board development. And then our May 20th meeting is a regular session with the listening session 30 minutes prior. Also the listening session sign up, Alicia sent that out today, so just for all board members to go ahead and kind of look at your calendars ahead to spread out people to come for those listening sessions. And there has to be at least one, there can't be more than 3. So. Then looking at our district celebrations, I will go ahead and start. It's been really awesome to see all the spring sports in high gear, and I'd like to welcome Steve and Danny, and congrats Solroy for continuing on. So welcome to our new board members. Bruce.
Thanks for showing the playground. I know it's been a very important topic, and the parent group for donating their money, how much ever it is, to the playground. I mean, that's awesome. And then also just on the 6th session, we had that professional development. We've had the same board for 2 years. We've had some of those professional developments throughout the time, just to kind of get together where we're not talking just about board specific agenda items. We can more freely communicate. So I look forward to that with our, Danny and Steve for the first time. We continue to start work as a board. Thanks.
Danny.
Congratulations to the forensics team for all their great work. It's amazing to me that anybody likes public speaking, so happy about that.
Thank you. Matt?
Welcome, Steve and Danny. Welcome back, Lori. Look forward to the next year for the board. Thanks.
Steve?
It's good to see the building of the auditorium and major improvements, structural improvements to the campus. So that's a good thing.
Steve, do you prefer Steve or Steven?
Either one's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ian?
Welcome to board members and back, Lori. A lot of donations. Drawing a blank. There was a lot of them. The saxophone, Ghost Prom.
Yep.
I'm leaving some out, but thank you.
Lori?
Thank you to all of those who are supporting our post-prom party this Saturday, keeping our kids safe in a wonderful environment. That post-prom party has been going on for many, many years. I think Naomi and Sandy Nemec, Naomi Below and Sandy Nemec started it.
1995. I was a senior in high school.
So what
Or
was
the first
that?
one. Almost 30 years.
15, 25, 30 years almost, yeah. And thank you again to Leslie Thomas. She has been awarded another Spartan Kids Care grant, and I appreciate all the work she's been doing, getting those funds to help our district and our Spartan Kids Care employees.
Great. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned at 6:59.